All right, so in part one, we talked about our people being in concentration camps and being in missions. And they was also in Catholic missions. This is an annual report among the colored people and the Indians from 1931. Also remember in part one, we talked about the female personification of America, which they named Columbia, which typically showed a woman with a feathered headdress holding a parrot, sitting on an alligator holding a cornucopia. Now, as time went on, they went to soften the rather savage image into a Princess Indian type, and in churches emphasizing conversion to Christianity. Remember conversion. Image of Columbia from Brown University. Now, some people will see the lady sitting on the alligator and consider that to be animated, right? But according to this encyclopedia, under Leviathan, which basically means a giant crocodile or dragon, we ourselves have witnessed and have known Negro women while bathing play with young alligators, which they have asserted they could do without danger unless they hurt them and thereby attract the vengeance of the mother. The occurrence took place at Old Harbor, Jamaica. Now remember I said remember conversion. First communicants for our converts. This is in Lafayette, Louisiana. First communion class of converts. And when we look into the list of all the major cities that they was converting our people at these missions, you will see the biggest populations of converts is going to be in Lafayette and New Orleans. It happened in Louisiana, because you got to understand what they was converting these people from and what they was trying to convert them to. Pima Indian Military Band from the St. John's Mission in Arizona. Now, I found this interesting. A new Negro church in Detroit, St. Benedict the Moor. And like I said in the beginning, these are annual reports. This one's from 1929. In this article, they talk about the struggling missions of Alexandria and the work that they were doing in Shreveport. If you look below me, they say a mass of neophytes. And the etymology of a neophyte is a new convert. And not only did this happen in the mainland, it also happened in the islands too. And when we look more into these concentration camps, we see that they was displacing more than 637,000 people in Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, one of the largest fundraising drives in American history to date. The Red Cross, along with the Secretary of Commerce, Herbert Hoover, deliberately concealed the abuse of black refugees suffered in the Red Cross camps in order to obtain donations for the rebuilding effort. And they did this all over the nation. If you look below right down there, the Red Cross was operating 838 concentration camps and 270 field houses at this time. 5,000 Negro flood victims concentrated in the camp and flood zone. The protective emblems of the International Committee of the Red Cross, as you can see, many nations. Now remember in part one when I talked about the Transylvania Project, where they removed all the black heirs off of their property and replaced it for an all-white settlement. And today it's even like less than like 5% of a black population there. But this links to the Transylvania Saxons. And peep the shield and how it got 7 castles on it. From 1767, it says Zuid America. That's Dutch for South America. Dutch, keep that in mind. Now look below how that emblem she holding and it got the 7 castles. And peep her with the feathered headdress holding the cornucopia. Remember how we talked about they was going to soften the rather savage type of Columbia through the conversion of Christianity. And something interesting I noticed about Transylvania, when you look up their city, it's a very small town. Notice there's ancient mounds there. They removed the heirs. And all their symbols is bats. Now, if you know about the bat was a Moorish crest symbol that was used for the merchant houses and to show all the wealth that they held from trading. Now back to these concentration camps, and shout out to Child of the Soul too. He put me on a lot of this information. This is a map of Crystal City from 1944. Japanese market, German section. Peep the map. They saying, can you locate your home on the camp? And mind you, that today Crystal City has less than a 1% black population. From 1870, behind the levees, life in Yazoo, Mississippi Delta. And this article speaks about our people being in the camps. Whenever darkies are found loafing about the Deer Creek town, they are given their choice of going to work on the levee or being arrested for vagrancy. They usually choose the levee work. The Vagrancy Act of 1866. Look into book reference. Another way they were stealing the land from the heirs was through these land grants. They was giving them to immigrants and to the corporations ran by immigrants. And we got to talk about the railroad companies, because if you look below me, the one with the least amount of acres is going to be 2 million. The one with the most is 47 million. You put all those together, that's down to all America. And when we look into the railway network of the world, you'll see that most of the railways are either in Europe or on the east coast of the United States. And particularly, that's where all the so-called African Americans live, right? And keep in mind that the U.S. Department of Agriculture lets us know that heirs property is most predominant among African American landholders. And that same department recognizes heirs property as the leading cause of black involuntary land loss. Another book reference. At the top, the place traditionally occupied by the Black Magnus has been taken away by a coppery-skinned Brazilian. He wears a feathered headdress. Only in one respect does he differ from the image of the American Indian, which was soon to become conventional. His nakedness is covered with a richly patterned shirt and breeches, presumably to make him presentable to the Holy Family. Now, the etymology of Magnus is a member of the ancient Persian priestly caste, which also translates to astrologers, or if you look down there below, wise men. Next, from the Pittsburgh Courier, one Afro-American's reaction to Hitler's exploits and recruited armies and pluralities in the hills of Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and invaded Florida again and again before Spain finally agreed to settle the peninsula until it had destroyed the Negro Indian civilization among the Shawnee, the Withlacoochee, and the Apalachicola rivers, which menaced the slave power. Then it broke its word by permitting Negroes there who had been born free to be hunted like rabbits and taken into chains to the Georgia plantations. Talk about Hitler breaking his word. And according to Britannica, Hitler ain't even his, given name. On legal documents, Hitler was given as a new last name, though the reason for the spelling change is unknown. Which, if we go back to Benjamin Franklin's book about the increase of mankind in 1751, he talked about the German immigrants being the sons of Africa and about their swarthy complexion, and about in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally what we call swarthy complexions, as are the Germans, and that the Saxons and the English make up the principal body of white people. In this article from 1871, they talk about a small colony in Livingston Parish in Louisiana consisting principally of Swedes. To each settler is allotted a farm according to his wants and means, ranging from 120 to 360 acres. Now, we talking about the swarthy Swedes, or we talking about these Swedes? Because during the World War, Sweden supplied Germany with 40% of its iron ore. And according to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, in 1919, when Hitler was asked about the Jewish question, his statement was that the Jews was a race and not a religious community like they like to say they is today. And the fate of Hitler's black victims, whether Afro-German or African-American soldiers and citizens, is often overlooked in the studies of World War II. They say it's often overlooked. Now, why would it be often overlooked? And this correlates with the Jewish Almanac of 1980, which says, strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. And the Weiner Holocaust Library, talking about the persecution of black people in the Nazi camp system. At the top, black and mixed race people experienced persecution and discrimination before, during, and after the Third Reich in Germany and elsewhere. Although black people still face widespread racism across the world today, the number of researchers and historians who have explored the persecution of black people under the Nazis in any meaningful depth remains relatively small, and we're going to start changing that. And one of the most extreme P-word actions against black Germans was mass sterilization of the Rhineland children in 1936. The Rhineland children was the black and the mixed race children of the black German soldiers. And people below me how the Holocaust Museum labels this as propaganda, talking about tiny tots want their daddy back. Because the whole time while they was trying to play the, like they was on some deadbeat stuff, they was really unaliving their fathers. Some concentration camp records indicate race was at the very least a significant contributing factor as to why some people was incarcerated. Like Gert Screaming, for example. Now with Gert Screaming, the reason for his arrest, one was political, the other one was Niger Mishingling, which translates into Negro half-breed, which can be seen in his documentation. Or like Theodore Michael. Theodore was a black American who had been working in Europe when he was caught up in Nazi persecution. He survived and submitted an application for financial assistance in the immediate post-war period, hoping to lead Germany in the displaced persons camp in which he was living. In the section at the bottom of the report entitled Interviewer's Recommendation, the official writes, eligibility to be reviewed, being a Negro, will any country accept him? And this is a very, very deep history. Throughout history, there's numerous pictures of people doing the Bellamy Salute, which came to be known as the Nazi Salute. This is from 1865 in celebration of the Union over the Confederates. Now, who was the Union and who was the Confederate? Because when we take it back to War of 1812, you got the U.S. versus the U.K., and on the U.K. side, you got Tsume's Confederacy. There's numerous historical documents saying Tsume was a Negro. Another reference, which all ties back to King George III, which the narrative says that he went crazy and was unfit to rule by 1811, but in all actuality, he gave up his crown and gave it to us by way of the Constitution. A so-called black part 3 on the way.